Welcome to Spotlight Chronicles, and we're going to speak clearly today for our global audience.
Absolutely.
Today we're diving deep into, well, I guess you could call it a treasure trove of interviews, really.
Yeah.
From the talks, and it features some really big names across, I mean, you name it, film, fashion, art, music.
The whole gamut of pop culture.
Yeah, a real mix of voices, which, and this is interesting to me, it tells us something about what our listeners are looking for, you know?
Right, exactly. When you look at the range of people that you've selected, the diversity of their backgrounds, it really suggests something about the core intent. You know, what are people hoping to learn or understand by listening to this deep dive, right? And based on what you've given me, it seems like the primary search intent here, what people are really after, is this sort of inside scoop, this deep understanding of what makes successful and creative people tick.
Makes sense.
They want to know, like, what are the thought processes? What are the things that motivate them? You know, what are the big picture philosophies they live by?
Right.
What drives these individuals to reach the top of their fields, you know, and how do they deal with the inevitable challenges they face?
And how do they translate all that into wisdom that we can maybe learn from?
Exactly. That's it. We're trying to uncover that wisdom, unpack it, and share it with you guys.
Exactly. So let's maybe start by looking at some of the big moments, right?
Yeah, sure.
The things that have shaped how these individuals see the world. Like Diane Lane, I thought she had a really interesting take on, you know, on staying in the U.S. during difficult times, even using the word hostage, which it's a pretty strong word.
Yeah.
But then she connects it to this belief in needing to support the country's well-being.
Yeah.
It's almost like this, it makes you think beyond like the Hollywood glitz and glam. You know, there's this sense of responsibility to something bigger.
It's fascinating how she links that sense of connection to something larger, not just to the U.S., but to the wider world. You know, she talked about her appreciation for less conventional travel. You know, her trip to Somaliland, for instance, and this understanding of women and how they're kind of the backbone of so many cultures.
Yeah.
It reveals a real depth of curiosity and this awareness that I think probably feeds into her work in ways we might not even realize.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how that ties into her desire for, I think she said, a modicum of privacy. You know, this conscious effort to not always be in the spotlight.
Right.
She even drew a parallel to Marilyn Monroe and that, you know, that duality between Norma Jean and the icon she became.
Right.
It's like, it's this careful balancing act, right?
Oh, absolutely.
How do you manage that public image while also, you know, protecting that inner self?
Yeah, and especially when you think about it in the context of creativity. I mean, so many of these interviews touch on this idea that inner space, that quiet, that privacy, that's where the magic happens, you know?
Right.
So protecting that is vital. Lane even talked about it. You know, she said that not fully expressing yourself, it kind of cheats, not just you, but the world as well.
It's a real tightrope walk.
It is.
Yeah.
And if we think back to Lane's comment about Marilyn Monroe and this idea of managing a public image, well, she also mentioned later in the interview this idea of tuning a radio to find a clear signal. And she was talking about her own energy.
Right.
And to me, that connects back to this idea of creating space, of maintaining that clear channel for the creative energy to flow.
And I love how she talked about change, too. Like this idea that a midlife crisis doesn't have to be a bad thing, you know? It could actually be like healthy, even necessary.
Right.
She talked about her own little acts of rebellion, which is a great phrase. And, you know, even something like cutting her hair, it might seem small, but she connected it to this feeling that, you know, the film industry had kind of, in a way, taken ownership of her image.
Yeah.
So cutting her hair became this powerful act of taking back control.
Right.
Finding that frequency, like she said.
It really highlights this theme of agency, of taking charge of your own narrative.
Yeah.
And we see that pop up in a lot of these interviews, you know.
Yeah.
People making conscious choices to shape their own experiences.
Now, shifting gears completely, we have Pele, who shared this really foundational lesson from his father.
Right.
About, you know, about humility, about respecting others, no matter how talented you are. And I feel like that's so important, you know?
It is. It speaks volumes about character. You know?
All right.
It's not just about talent. It's about how you treat people, how you carry yourself in the world. Pele's dad, he clearly understood that true success is about so much more than just individual skill.
And then we have Susan Sarandon and her Andan tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a powerful symbol, you know?
Yeah.
New beginnings, letting go of the past.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's a very permanent reminder,
Yeah.
etched on her skin that she has to keep moving forward, embracing change.
It's a pretty literal embodiment of not being stuck in the past.
It is, and it makes you wonder what specific events, what moments in her life led to that kind of commitment.
And Michael Caine's perspective is so powerful too.
Yeah.
You know, his near-death experience in Korea really shaped his view on living each moment fully.
Wow.
That's a heavy thing to carry with you, but it's also incredibly motivating.
It's almost like it strips away all the fluff, all the unnecessary stuff.
Right.
And you're left with this raw understanding of how precious time is.
Hmm.
And I think you can see that urgency in Kane's work, his continued passion.
Definitely. And then finally, in this exploration of defining moments, we have Jeff Bridges. And, you know, he talks about looking at tough times as learning opportunities. And he says he sees life itself as his guru.
Yeah.
That's a pretty profound shift in perspective.
It is.
Yeah.
It's about taking those difficult moments, those setbacks, and finding the nugget of wisdom within them.
Yeah.
And that ability to bounce back, to learn from adversity, that's a real hallmark of resilience.
Okay, so let's maybe move into the core of all this, right? The creative process itself. Paolo Roversi, I thought he had a really interesting approach, you know?
Yeah.
He talked about embracing accidents, letting life kind of intrude on the picture. It's almost like this organic, trusting way of working.
Yeah, it speaks to this openness to the unexpected, which I think is often at the heart of really groundbreaking work,
Yeah.
Like Roversi's willing to give up a little bit of control and let those serendipitous moments happen, which suggests a really deep understanding that creativity isn't always about rigid plans. Sometimes it's about being open to what unfolds naturally.
And then you have Gabriel Orozco, who talks about this constant striving for innovation,
Right.
actively avoiding repetition. He even sees it as reflecting the ever-changing nature of time.
It's ambitious, right?
It
It's
is.
always be
Okay.
moving, always be evolving.
Yeah.
But it speaks to this deep desire to stay relevant, to keep challenging himself. Like stagnation is the enemy of creativity.
Yeah.
And that constant evolution is what keeps you engaged,
Yeah.
keeps you alive.
Now, Thomas Hirschhorn, he had this kind of unique take.
Okay.
He sees creation as something to be, and I'm quoting here, given up in order to really connect with others and to live fully.
Hmm.
It's almost like a selfless approach to art.
It is. It's like he's emphasizing the social aspect of creativity, the way it connects us.
Right.
It's not just about expressing yourself. It's about offering something to the world,
Yeah.
contributing to that larger conversation,
And Nils Fromm, I thought he brought a really nice counterpoint to this whole idea of perfection.
Hmm.
He's very accepting of imperfections, you know?
Yeah.
He sees them as part of what makes us human, what makes things interesting.
It's about finding the beauty in the flaws,
Right.
those little imperfections. They can actually be what gives a piece soul.
And David Lynch, I loved how he described his process. He talks about ideas being the driving force, you know, and they start as these little fragments that eventually kind of coalesce into a script. It's almost like channeling something, right?
He's a conduit for these elusive thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the mystery of the creative process, how things emerge from the subconscious.
You know, Tom Main, he's an architect, and he had this interesting observation.
Yeah.
He talked about how many architects, they find their artistic voice early on, but then they often work on smaller projects before they get to those big iconic buildings later in their careers.
Right.
It's like a gradual process of development.
It's a very grounded perspective, I think.
Yeah.
It suggests that mastery takes time. You know,
right.
you have to experiment, and you have to build that foundation of experience before you can really, take on those massive projects.
Edward Norton talked about the joy he finds in spontaneity when he's acting, you know.
Oh.
He contrasted that with the more cerebral perfectionist side of things, which he said could be really draining.
It shows that balance, right?
Yeah.
Between preparation and improvisation.
Right.
I mean, the hard work is important, but it's those unexpected moments that can really bring a sense of excitement, of discovery
Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, I thought he had a great way of describing ambition. He called it this never-ending tunnel. It's like it's never ending, right? There's
Yeah.
always something more to strive for.
For some people, success isn't a destination, it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's about constantly setting new goals, pushing yourself further.
No, Steve McQueen, he's all about truth, you know?
Yeah.
Whether it's beautiful or ugly, I think that's a powerful guiding principle.
It is. It speaks to this real sense of integrity,
Right.
not shying away from difficult realities.
Catherine Deneuve, she talked about wanting to be pushed somewhere else,
Right.
beyond what she's already capable of. That's a pretty proactive approach to growth.
It's about refusing to get complacent,
Yeah.
always seeking out new challenges, new creative territories.
Harry Benson, the photographer, he had this incredible sense of his own vision, and he said he doesn't really care whether other people like his pictures or not. It's like that's artistic conviction right there.
It is. It's about trusting your gut, staying true to what you believe in.
And Sheila Heti, she views writing as this endless process, and she actually embraces the constant learning that comes with it.
Yeah, it's a journey without a final destination.
Right.
It's about this constant cycle of learning, experimenting, refining your craft.
Now, Gareth Pugh, he talked about striving for this perfect thing that should always be just out of reach.
Right.
It's the pursuit itself that really matters.
Yeah, the ideal, it serves as this sort of guiding star, right?
Right.
It motivates you, it pushes you forward, even if you never quite reach it.
And Chiwetel Ejiofor, I love this analogy he used. He talked about trying to hit it into the rafters despite the risk of missing.
It's a good one.
It's like it's all about aiming high.
It captures that willingness to take risks, to push beyond your perceived limitations.
Yeah.
You might not always succeed, but you're going for it.
Mario Sorrenti, his whole approach to photography, it's like this ongoing journey of growth, learning, experimentation.
Right.
He's constantly challenging like the very definition of what photography can be.
It's a state of perpetual evolution,
Yeah.
Always questioning, always exploring.
Now, Grimes, I thought she had a really interesting perspective on ambition. She said she aspires to be the best, even if she falls short of that. It's still a higher achievement than not trying at all.
It's a different way of framing failure, It's
Yeah.
about the value of setting ambitious goals, even if you don't always reach them.
Elizabeth Peyton, she talked about the ultimate goal of being an artist as connecting with the world, having a conversation through your work.
Yeah, it's about that resonance, that engagement with an audience,
Yeah.
creating something that sparks a dialogue,
Mhm.
that connects with people on an emotional or intellectual level.
Now, Kazuo Ishiguro, he talked about this absolute refusal to compromise on the essence of a project.
Right.
It's about protecting that core vision.
It is. It's about maintaining your artistic integrity,
Yeah.
not sacrificing the heart of a work, no matter what kind of pressures you're facing.
Sienna Miller, she has this constant longing to see new things, experience new things.
Right.
That curiosity seems to be like a driving force for her.
It speaks to the power of curiosity, that
Mhm.
thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
It fuels both personal growth and creativity.
Now, Rick Owens, I thought he brought a really grounded perspective to all of this.
Yeah.
He emphasized that inspiration alone isn't enough.
Right.
You
Yeah.
need that execution. You need that ability to deliver.
It highlights the practical side of things,
Yeah.
taking those abstract ideas and turning them into something real, something tangible.
And Sophie Pak, she talked about how her early experiences of not being accepted in the kitchen actually ended up being really liberating for her. It's like adversity can sometimes open up these unexpected paths.
It shows that sometimes overcoming those challenges, those moments of resistance, it can actually lead to a stronger sense of self, you
Sure.
know, and greater creative freedom because you're forced to forge your own path.
Now, Marina Abramovich, she describes herself as this modern nomad and a soldier completely dedicated to her art.
Wow.
That's a pretty powerful self-image.
It speaks to her absolute dedication to her mission,
Yeah.
her willingness to push herself, to endure, to really put it all out there.
James Cameron, he's driven by this desire to create work that blows people away, pushes the boundaries of what's possible.
He wants to evoke that sense of wonder,
Yeah.
and to contribute to the evolution of filmmaking as storytelling.
Massimo Bottura, he talked about investing in dreams even when they don't seem profitable.
Yeah,
He's
right.
prioritizing passion and vision over just financial gain.
It's about believing in something beyond the bottom line. Trusting that passion and a long-term vision will ultimately lead to something meaningful.
Alejandro Iñárritu described this interesting flip that can happen when you keep going even after you've kind of lost faith.
Hmm.
It's a testament to perseverance.
Absolutely. Breakthroughs can happen when you least expect them,
Right.
but you have to keep showing up even when it's tough.
Now, Stuart Vevers, he has this really interesting habit. After he achieves something, he immediately asks, "So what's next?"
Hmm.
It's all about that forward momentum, you know?
He doesn't rest on his laurels.
No.
It's about constant growth, always looking for the next challenge.
Luca Guadagnino talked about letting the subconscious drive his creative work rather than just chasing, fame or recognition.
It's about trusting your intuition, letting things emerge organically.
Yeah.
The most authentic work often comes from a deeper, less conscious place.
Well, Honan Johansson, he had this drive to keep expanding his artistic language with every project.
Hmm.
Like he was always evolving.
It highlights the importance of experimentation,
Yeah.
pushing your own boundaries, finding new ways to express yourself.
Irvine Welsh, he offered a bit of a different perspective. He actually finds failure more interesting and more educational than just straight up success.
It's an interesting take, isn't it?
Yeah.
It challenges that traditional idea that success is the only thing that matters.
Right.
Sometimes those stumbles, those setbacks, those are the things that teach you the most valuable lessons.
And Steve McCurry, he talked about needing to constantly evolve and reinvent his work to avoid becoming stagnant.
Yeah.
Staying fresh is so important.
It is. You have to be adaptable. You have to be willing to change,
Yeah.
to explore new avenues if you want to stay relevant.
And Robert Harris, I thought he was really interesting. He looked back on his career with this sense of luck, you know?
Hmm.
He said he just followed his interests and it led him to a fulfilling career.
It's a good reminder that sometimes it's about following your passions. Trusting that if you're genuinely interested in something, it will lead you to a place of real satisfaction.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how these individuals deal with challenges, right? Because everyone faces them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Viggo Mortensen, he had this great belief that the fear of failing shouldn't stop you from trying new things.
Fears can be so paralyzing, right?
Yeah.
But Mortensen's point is that you have to push past that.
Yeah.
Embrace the possibility of not succeeding because that's often the key to growth and innovation.
Amy Schumer, she brought a really grounded perspective to this, saying that going through tough times, it puts things in perspective, you know? It helps you see what really matters.
Yeah, all that petty shit, as she put it, it just fades away.
Right.
You're left with what's truly important.
Peter Dinklage talked about the importance of learning to say no. Especially early in your career, you know?
Yeah.
So that you can be proud of the choices you make.
It's about protecting your integrity.
Right.
Making choices that align with your values, your long-term goals.
Yeah.
Even if it means saying no to things that might seem tempting in the moment.
For Anadria, he believes that you have to cultivate your own happiness in order to really be successful and bring happiness to others.
Right.
There's a real connection there.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself, nurture your own well-being if you want to make a positive impact on the world around you.
Francis Ford Coppola, he talked about how his films weren't always instant successes.
Right.
You know, some of them actually gained more appreciation over time.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that recognition doesn't always happen right away.
It's a lesson in patience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And perseverance. Sometimes the true impact of your work unfolds over a much longer period.
Jürgen Teller, he's all about action. He said, just act on your ideas. Don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah, just go for it. Don't let the fear of not succeeding hold you back, because inaction can be even worse.
Robert Richardson, he emphasized the importance of recognizing luck when it comes your way.
Right.
And then making the most of those opportunities.
It's about being aware and being prepared,
Yeah.
Sometimes chance plays a role, but you have to be ready to seize those moments when they arise.
T.C. Boyle talked about the importance of working every day.
Yeah.
It's that consistency, that dedication that allows your vision to really take shape.
It's about showing up, putting in the work day after day.
Right.
That's how you nurture those creative seeds and help them grow.
Clive Davis, he sees a strong work ethic as almost essential for success.
Hard work is fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dedication, perseverance, that commitment to putting in the hours, that's what separates those who achieve their goals from those who don't.
Now, Bruce Stern had this beautiful idea that everyone needs to keep dreaming. He
Hmm.
said it's over when you stop dreaming.
It's about maintaining that sense of hope. Yeah.
That vision for the future. It keeps you motivated. It gives you purpose.
Ethan Hawke talked about the heartbreak of not always being able to make the films you want, but also the need for patience, you know?
Yeah.
In a long career, there are going to be disappointments.
It's a realistic view of the creative industries.
Yeah.
You have to develop that resilience.
Right.
The ability to bounce back from setbacks while still maintaining your passion.
Julian Schnabel, he sees art as this almost monastic practice, you know, regardless of whether it brings financial reward.
It's about that intrinsic drive,
Right.
that deep commitment to the creative process itself.
Mick Jagger, he had a very simple philosophy. He said, just keep doing what you like doing for as long as you can.
Yeah, find the joy in it and keep going.
Yeah.
It's about that ongoing engagement, that passion that sustains you.
Mick Rock, he talked about being open to your instincts, you know,
Yeah.
the energies around you.
Trust your gut, right?
Yeah. Listen to your intuition. It can be incredibly powerful.
Joel Edgerton talked about the freedom that comes from pursuing your passions, even if you don't get external validation.
It's about that internal sense of liberation,
Right.
doing what you love for its own sake.
LeBron James, he reflected on how he's learned and grown from the mistakes he made when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
It's about seeing those missteps as opportunities.
It's about self-awareness, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and the ability to extract those valuable lessons from your past experiences.
Willem Dafoe, his ambition is to become less afraid, you know, to remove those boundaries, those limitations he's maybe placed on himself.
Fear can hold you back in so many ways.
Uh-huh.
Defoe understands that, and he's actively working to overcome those fears, to open himself up to new possibilities.
Darren Aronofsky, he views creative projects as marathons.
Right.
You know, you have to nurture them, you have to have that dedication to see them through.
It's about that long-term vision, that unwavering commitment. It takes sustained effort to bring those big, ambitious projects to life.
Frida Pinto, she believes that taking risks is crucial to avoid getting stuck.
Yeah, you got to step outside that comfort zone.
Yeah.
If you want to keep growing, you have to be willing to embrace uncertainty, to venture into the unknown.
Charlie Hunnam, he focuses on the process itself, you know, this daily commitment to being the best version of himself.
It's about constant self-improvement, that dedication to personal growth.
Right.
And focusing on that journey, that continuous striving.
Thea Sharrock had this interesting idea that risk is actually essential to creativity.
Right.
And it can actually provide a sense of safety, which is kind of paradoxical.
It is, but
Yeah.
it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
Embracing creative risks can be incredibly motivating. You know,
Right.
It can give you that sense of conviction, that feeling of security in your choices.
Hader Ackerman, he really emphasizes the importance of curiosity and exploration. He actually sees overconfidence as a danger.
Right. It can lead to stagnation. You know,
Yeah.
you have to stay humble, stay curious, always be learning.
Shireen Nishat, she recognizes that it's almost impossible to create art that everyone loves.
Right.
And she finds a sense of freedom in accepting that.
It's about letting go of that need for universal approval.